All right, let's go ahead. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our sixth webinar series on Ayurveda biology. We were inspired to do this series because we felt that not enough people knew about Ayurveda biology as a science and what it was about. So, in the last five series, we have invited people from different areas of biology. Um, as Vaidyas, as scientists, we started off with Professor Valyathan, and today we have Dr. Supriya Bhalerao with us. Am I slide, Vishnu?
Meha, I didn't get you.
Am I slide still visible?
Yes.
Okay. So, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the TDU, we are the University of Transdisciplinary Health Sciences and Technology. We are a small private university and we are based out of Bangalore, North Bangalore, for those of you who are familiar with our lovely city. Now, we are a small private university and we have a very particular niche. We are born out of a NGO called the Foundation for the Revitalization of Local Health Traditions. And this NGO sought to understand India's diverse medical knowledge systems, to preserve these medical knowledge systems, and now as a university to understand them and to share them. And while we are very agnostic about Indian knowledge systems, in our university, we have expertise to understand Ayurveda. Now, when you think of the word Ayurveda, what comes to mind immediately are medicinal plants and churnas and decoctions, right? And when you think of life sciences, you think of DNA and protein. And so this combination might seem very odd to you, an MSc Life Sciences in Ayurveda biology. How can you do things that are new as well as old? For us, there is no difference between Ayurveda and life sciences, in the sense that Ayurveda is not just a medical science. Ayur, life, Veda, knowledge. It's knowledge about life. What has come down to us today is mostly medical and health in nature, but that does not mean that it does not strive to understand life and nature all around us in all its glory and beauty. Where Ayurveda understands the nature as Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, life sciences understands nature as A, T, G, and C. As a transdisciplinary university, we see that these are just two different perspectives to understand the same concept. And they have a shared space in understanding the world around us. So for us, it is not this or that, it is both together. And whatever enables mankind and humankind to understand the world around us. And so we've thought of this combination of MSc Life Sciences, Ayurveda Biology. Because students who come to our course already have a preliminary grounding either in the Ayush sciences or biology or chemistry. And so therefore this 2-year full-time PG program enables students from any of these streams to learn more about life sciences as well as more about Ayurveda, no matter what their background. This course is for those individuals who are interested in doing research, working in the industry, or perhaps even working at the grassroots level with NGOs and policymakers. It is for knowledge seekers, those who want to understand diverse sources of knowledge in the vocabulary that it was written in, and understand how this can be taken forward in terms of science and truth moving forward. So this program is divided into 4 semesters. The first semester, or rather the first 2 semesters, are basically theoretical as well as practical knowledge on diverse topics. Much of our syllabus is borrowed from the typical MSc Life Sciences syllabus as prescribed in UGC, along with certain subjects to help students grasp the Ayurveda biology part of it. So the first 2 semesters starts off with biochemistry, molecular biology, fundamentals of Ayurveda. We are interested in our students knowing the basics of Ayurveda. We are not making students into Vaidyas. That's a completely different course. But we want the students to know what are the Panchamahabhuta Siddhantas, how are the Tridoshas Siddhanta understood, how are they expressed, what are their manifestations. And this is combined with other life science topics such as ecology. We also want our students to get a good hands-on practical experience. So no matter the background, students are exposed to biology practicals, both biochemistry, molecular biology, and in the second semester, medicinal plants, uh, conservation. And because FRLHT has a long history in working with local populations and understanding nature from everybody's perspective, especially the person who is in that particular area, we have courses such as local health traditions and conservation that is in the area of medicinal plants and in those areas where we have been working for several years now. In the third semester, we have the research methodology courses, which prepares the student for their dissertation project, topics such as One Health, and 2 electives that we allow students to take from anywhere, including the MOOC courses. So we believe that knowledge should not be of any one particular domain. Electives can be taken by students based on what their future skills are. If a student wants to do neuroscience, they can take a neurobiology elective. If a student wants to start a business, maybe they would want to take an elective in accounting. So there are 2 electives that are permitted, and students can take them from anywhere, including online. In the last semester, we expect students to completely devote their time to a project. Now, those of you who are coming from an Ayurveda background, especially BAMS, might want to do a clinical-based project. And so we will help you identify supervisors who are also clinicians or maybe Vaidyas and who are working in areas that you are interested in. Some of you might be interested in going to national laboratories and working with cutting-edge research tools. And so the program enables you to decide where you want to go, and the faculty in TDU are committed to helping you figure out and getting you to that particular place. We have several partner institutions which are associated with TDU, and true to our word of transdisciplinary, that includes organizations involved in conservation, the arts, cell biology, stem cell biology, IISc Purna Learning Center, which is a school, St. John's Research Institute, which is a clinical institute, and such as Suchitra Cinema and Cultural Academy. So the whole gamut of experiences. We think that after this course, students can become innovators in their respective fields, maybe in terms of doing bench science, maybe in terms of being a Vaidya, and maybe in terms of diagnostics, or maybe in terms of being a policy or an activist. With that, I'm going to stop talking about our course, and I will hand it over to Dr. Vishnu Prasad to introduce our guests and continue with the rest of this program. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Megha, for that wonderful brief introduction about our university and course. Good evening, Dr. Supriya Bhalerao. It's really a great pleasure to have you here today with us for this interactive session. I would like to briefly introduce Dr. Supriya Bhalerao for the audience who are attending this webinar. Dr. Supriya Bhalerao is an MD in Ayurveda and a PhD in Ayurveda, and she is currently heading the Obesity Research Lab at the Interactive Research School for Health Affairs, Pune, which is associated with the Bharati Vidyapeeth, which is deemed to be a university in India. And Dr. Supriya Bhalerao is interested basically in evaluating the Ayurvedic drugs and formulations in the context of, as well as procedures in the context of obesity and diabetes. And also her research is basically focusing on providing insights from both Ayurvedic as well as from the modern biology perspective to understand the diagnosis and management of these two conditions using this different Ayurveda formulations and procedures. And she has been awarded with so many best paper presentations, etc., and has a list of interesting publications in the area of Ayurveda biology and statistics and clinical research, which is related to Ayurveda. And she is heading this team of diabetes and obesity research in this center. So it's really a great pleasure to have you here, Dr. Supriya Bhalerao, and extend a warm welcome to you. And with that brief introduction, I would like to start this interactive session. Dr. Supriya, I would like to actually start with this. The name of your school where you have affiliated, which is Interactive Research School for Health Affairs. So, I would like to request you to please talk about the concept of interactive research school, because it's a very innovative term. And also, I would like to request you to talk about the larger need for such institution to nurture and promote programs like Ayurveda biology.
Thank you, Dr. Vishnu. And at the outset, I would like to thank you and Dr. Megha for inviting me here. And I am especially delighted to know that this series was started by Dr. Valiathan. So the project and his visionary project, a science initiative in Ayurveda, and I have participated in that, and I was a coordinator for one of the projects. So it is really nice, like the series which sir has started, I'm participating in that series, and that too in the capacity of a guest. So it is really a kind of honor for me, and thank you very much for that. Now coming to the name of my institution, and it is always vary to many people, like what is this interactive research school, because this is a very new kind of term. The idea here is like we are a part of Bharati Vidyapit deemed to be university, and on our campus we have medical, dental, Ayurveda, homeopathy colleges, even pharmacy college we have, then biotechnology college we have, so and even engineering colleges we have. But mainly I'm focusing on the health sciences stream. So the idea was like interactive research school will interact with all these disciplines and then frame projects and then do some research in different specialties, like not only in Ayurveda, but in every discipline like dental. And many students from dental stream also come to our institute and do their research projects. And that is how they got introduced to research methodology, which is lacking in medical curriculum actually, this robust kind of methodology and this kind of project environment. So we are like an ecosystem, and interactive research school is leading or giving directions to the aspiring students to do research in their respective areas. So this is all about my institute. And the other part of question which you asked me, like what is the need of the larger need of having Ayurveda biology schools or Ayurveda biology programs. And when I was listening to Dr. Megha, and she showed one slide that who should apply and why should apply. So I think that answers many things, like those who are knowledge seekers, they should apply for this post. That was a clear message. And I feel like Ayurveda biology is not a discipline, but it is an approach. And that approach has to be inculcated for two things, I would say rather. One obviously to explore the huge science of Ayurveda, because there are so many concepts, there are so many things. It is, we always say like it is a treasure, and we have to explore that treasure. So for exploring the science to fullest, because I am sure like even if we work for 10,000 years more, it will not be fully explored. So to explore the science to the best of our capacity. And second thing, Dr. Megha and Dr. Vishnu, I would like you to add one more component in your who should apply kind of the slide which you have shown, because you have shown like the researchers, the those who want to go to industry. But why not clinicians? Even if I want to do clinical practice, even if I want to be a clinical practitioner, still this program is going to change my outlook towards the science. It is going to change my approach toward the patient management, as somewhere you rightly mentioned. So I feel like to excel in our own science, also we need these kind of programs where there is a symbiotic these kind of programs are definitely very much important.
Yeah, thank you for that point that you have highlighted for clinicians. So, in fact, like, we will ensure that we are emphasizing that point also in our slides. But certainly, I would like to share with you that we have 50% of our current students are from BAMS background, and they are actually sharing with us that this course is basically helping them in understanding their clinical practice in a different perspective and a better way. So definitely we will highlight that, and it is something like it's very important, because some people, they were saying that they are actually
I
able
mean,
to
if
explain.
this approach should not get restricted to only researchers or only
Yes,
academicians. It is
certainly,
equally
certainly,
important for clinicians.
certainly, yeah, certainly that we will have. Uh, the next question, what I would like to ask, we always say that Ayurveda is something that based on the Indian philosophy, and whereas the biology, which is largely based on the Western philosophy. So, where do you think cross-cultural knowledge sharing, something like what we are talking, like Ayurveda biology, is important, maybe in the area of medical research, or in a larger sense, maybe in the knowledge generation? And also, would like to ask more personally, how did you get into this Ayurveda biology research?
Okay, so if you allow me, can I answer the second question first, because that will be my
Certainly,
personal experience, and I would be more happy to share that. So
certainly.
when I did my MD, that is in Ayurveda only, from Gujarat Ayurveda University Institute of Postgraduate Training Research in Ayurveda. That is the institute which has recently got a status of national importance. So I have done my MD from there. And when I was doing MD way back in 1998, and you can imagine in Ayurveda college, it is an Ayurveda university also, not only Ayurveda college, but Ayurveda university. But I got an opportunity to work with my thesis involved animal experiments also, and some pharmaceutical chemistry experiments also. And you won't believe, but we had the pharmaceutical chemistry lab in our institution, and which was headed by pharmaceutical chemistry expert, Dr. Subrata Day, and a pharmacologist, Dr. Ravi Shankar. Many of you might be knowing him. He was heading the center at Udupi. So he was my co-guide. These both stalwarts were my co-guide, and that is how I got exposed to animal experimentation. And I did 3 animal experiments in my MD, and I got very much interested. I mean, I really enjoyed handling animals and doing those experiments, and I wanted to continue that thing. Like after my MD, I decided that I won't enter into academics, or I won't enter into clinical practice, but I would continue the things which and Dr. Ravi Shankar has taught me, like this animal experimentation and all. So then I joined KEM Hospital in Mumbai, which is a tertiary care medical hospital. And late Dr. Sharadini Dahanokar was heading that department during that time. And then she exposed me to a vast, area of the research. And I got to know like what I have learned in Jamnagar and what experiments I have learned there. There is much to learn, much more to learn. And I got exposed to state-of-art facilities in KEM Hospital, because it is one of the finest hospital in the country. So many facilities were available, and my first project was also their animal experimentation only. So I continued that thing. And then in 2006, I did a molecular biology course at Pondicherry, JIPMER Pondicherry. And it was very nice. Like when I did the course, it was very interesting. And that time, unfortunately, the programs like Ayurveda biology were not there. So we have to find out opportunity like where I can do this thing. And you won't believe, but the question was like whether they will accept a Ayurveda doctor to learn the molecular biology. But somehow my application got sanctioned and I learned molecular biology. And when I learned there, for you it must be very easy like to isolate DNA and RNA, and I learned that those things there. But when I came back and we set up a molecular biology lab, and then the responsibility was given to me that whatever you have learned in the course, now you have to reproduce here. But then I realized that how difficult it is for me to simply isolate the DNA and RNA which I have learned in the course. It was very difficult for me to reproduce, because though they have given us hands-on, when there are many practical issues, but I mean, we did that thing also. We set up the molecular biology lab, and I have just learned from human cells, but then we went ahead and we even isolated DNA from plants and did different RAPDs. And for human samples also, we worked on RFLP, polymorphisms, and published some papers. And that is how we got, I mean, I got my foot in molecular biology, or so-called, I will say, like that time this term was not there, but in Ayurveda biology. And later on, when Dr. Valiathan started, and before that, even I participated in the CSR Nimitli project, which many of you must be knowing that it was a nationwide project and many institutions were involved in that. And that was my first introduction to diabetes. Now, whatever lab I am heading, it is a diabetes lab, but the training started from CSR Nimitli project way back in 2002. So when I participated in the project, we many different techniques I came to know, many different terms on molecular level, how to understand diabetes. All that training I got during CSR Nimitli. And then afterwards, in 2007, when Dr. Valiathan launched the Science Initiative in Ayurveda program, I was a coordinator for the immunological and metabolic effects of Panchakarma project. And that was really, really very interesting. And I got introduced to many scientists because it was a transdisciplinary kind of project. And I got to work with finest immunologists in the country, Dr. Shubhada Chiprankar. And this is how I developed interest in exploring the concepts of Ayurveda, because the whole Ayurveda biology program which Valiathan sir has conceived, and he wants us to work on like exploring the concepts of Ayurveda, or looking at the concepts and procedures of Ayurveda from a different perspective, from a modern biology perspective. And that training was really useful for me. And later on, I set up this lab at Interactive Research School. So since 2013, I am working here, and I'm happy and a little bit proud also to tell that in our lab we are working on gene expression, protein expressions, and this is being done under my supervision. What I'm trying to say, like my supervision is not something very, I mean, special, because whenever you have your lab, you have to supervise the students. That is not a great thing. But being from an Ayurveda field, now I can do the work up to this level. This is something different. And those who are listening from Ayurveda field, I want to tell them that you can do it. And this is something very interesting and fascinating field if you really want to enter into. And at the same time, the biotechnology students who are listening to this, or life sciences students who are listening to this program, I would like to tell them that in my lab, there are microbiologists, MSc microbiology, PhD microbiology, MSc biotech, PhD biotech. Now they are talking Ayurveda concepts. And if I forget sometime like to add something in my project, then they remind me that, no, madam, we have to look Agni also in this project, because we are doing microbiome estimation. So gut microbiome, microbial diversity we are seeing. So we must include Agni in this particular proposal. So this kind of work atmosphere is now created in our lab, and this whole training started from my Jamnagar days. So this is how, as you asked me, like personally, and I would summarize this whole thing in one sentence, that when I started working in Ayurveda biology kind of experiments, I understood Ayurveda in a better way. I would rather say this, because this has opened like how to look in at my own science with a different vision, how to look at the concepts from different perspective. So this is like understanding my own science with a different way, from a different perspective. and that is what is more interesting. So I feel like to understand your own science, so you need to have these kind of cross cultural things, and for that only these kind of programs are very important.
That's really an inspirational description of your, personal journey through this field, and I'm sure our students as well as those other graduates of Ayurveda, those who are listening, will be really, get more inspired to enter into this kind of research area. So, thank you for putting it in a very nice way. So in that context, I would like to, because you are mentioning about your diabetes research and all those things, and even I am also working in that area. So I would like to ask this question because we know that diabetes is currently understood largely from a molecular perspective, like say, for example, hyperglycemia or insulin and all those things. But we know that Ayurveda see things in a slightly different perspective. So as a established researcher in this area, how do you think Ayurvedic insights can improve the kind of holistic understanding of diabetes as a condition, or other comorbidities associated with diabetes? What is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is really an interesting question, and I would like to answer it to the best of my capacity. The first thing is, like as you rightly said, the diabetes is understood from molecular perspective, but of course Ayurveda has a lot to offer in that whole domain. Because if you see like how the diagnosis and understanding of diabetes is changed in few recent years, from glucocentric theory it is now shifting to lipocentric theory, and that is what Ayurveda has told exactly, that it starts with Meda Dhatu and Bahu Abadha Meda, that is a description. It may be correlated with free fatty acids or something like that. But this description appears in Ayurveda so many years back, and this is a very interesting thing, that how they have told like diabetes is not to be looked into a sugar, but it has to be looked into Meda Dhatu. And then there are simple diagnostic methods which have been given. For example, Sammanana, that is fact, what to say, like how the muscle flaccidity, whether the muscles are flaccid or they are compact. If a person is having compact muscles, then the diabetes is still manageable, and if the person is having loose muscle and the flaccidity is not there, so or they are flaccid rather, so that is, in that case, the diabetes is not very easily treatable or manageable. If you, I mean, relate it now with the modern science, it is like ectopic fat deposition in muscles. So if there is a ectopic fat deposition, then the insulin resistance is more, the glucose uptake by muscles is less, and the whole glucose disposal from muscle is also less. So like, there are many such concepts which are given in Ayurveda, which can still give us so many things to, look into the disease from a different way. Simple thing is Purva Rupa. You might have heard about this term, that prodromal symptoms of diabetes have been described, and that is a unique feature of Ayurveda, that Ayurveda has described 10 or 11 such features of diabetes. And when you say like Kaksha Gandha, or some axillary, means you can say it like, you can relate it to the change in axillary microbial diversity. Or when it is said like Swadu Astyata, that means the sweet taste in mouth, then you can relate it to pH of saliva, or salivary microbiome, how it is changed. And now the reports are coming like how periodontitis is closely associated with diabetes. So these things, I think we have forgotten to read between the lines. If we read the lines, and if we connect the dots, then maybe the whole picture will be very clear to us. And now it is like reinventing the wheel, and many things we are, I mean, now scientists are finding out, and then it is a reaction like, oh, it is already described in Ayurveda, and it is said in our text, so 1,000 years back or 10,000 years back, whatever. So it is our duty, I mean, I really feel that it is our duty, that whatever, why we can't say this emphatically and beforehand, upfrontly, like this is in our text, and why we don't explore it, why we wait for someone else to explore it and tell us like, now this is the thing, and this can be the new, this is new area of research. We have so much already given in our text, we need to just read between the line and understand it very properly. So I would just, if time permits, I would like to give another example of obesity also. That obesity now, BMI, and how obesity is measured is in terms of BMI. So a lot of discussion is going on, like whether we can define a disease in terms of a statistical formula, because BMI is a statistical formula, and how a biological entity can be defined as a statistical formula. So this is a discussion which is being going on all around the world, and people are saying that we have to change the definition of obesity, the diagnosis of obesity. But if we come to Ayurveda, Ayurveda has never said like BMI or something, some formula is going to define obesity. So Ayurveda has given a functional classification. If you are obese, now the terms are coming up like metabolically healthy obese, metabolically unhealthy obese. But Ayurveda has always said like if you are obese and still if you can perform your exercise properly, if you are having your muscles compact, then you don't have to worry, because that obesity is not going to be detrimental. If you are having opposite to this kind of phenomenon, then only you have to worry. So Ayurveda has given a functional classification. And recently I attended a conference of endocrinologists on obesity, and they were saying like we are now designing a proforma, like how we can categorize obesity based on the functional things. So this is like we are coming back to the same things, but it is coming in some new words, new terminologies. So what I feel that Ayurveda biology is a common language which can connect the sciences, and that's why it is imperative nowadays to learn Ayurveda biology and get mastery in Ayurveda biology.
Yeah, that I really like that it is Ayurveda biology is becoming a common language to understand biology and health
It
science.
is
And
like alphabets, that if you want to connect the two things, you should know these basic things. And your course is so nicely designed. Means I was looking when Dr. Megha was explaining the 4 semesters. The first 2 semesters, lot of portions, lot of curriculum is there, and it is going to cover almost everything. So it is going to be a common language, I would say, how people from both sides can communicate with each other.
yeah, exactly. And thank you for that, appreciation for the syllabus what we have. So just like this diabetes, when we were, going through your CV and publications, so this area that you are focusing on pharmacovigilance, I think there are not many people, particularly from the Ayurveda angle, they're, working in this area of pharmacovigilance. So I would like to request you to, talk about this pharmacovigilance. So basically, like, I don't think many people are really aware of what is this and why it is important, and sort of, and also there will be always a question because if, say, for example, those who are working, studying this Ayurveda biology, they may always think like, what sort of skill sets are really required to develop a cadre in this kind of a pharmacovigilance profession. So please, give us some insights into that.
Yeah, as you rightly said that many people are not aware about the pharmacovigilance, but I must tell you that we started this program way back in 2006. The paper which you must have read is written in 2008. So that time people were, now at least people know this word, but in 2006 we had taken one workshop like pharmacovigilance of Ayurveda for Ayurveda. And basically, the concept came to our mind because I was working in Nair Hospital that time, the sister concern of KEM Hospital in Mumbai, and their a pharmacovigilance program for modern medicine was had taken place. And we thought that if we are talking about modern medicine pharmacovigilance, then why should not we promote or propagate about the Ayurvedic things? But you won't believe that there was so much resistance about this pharmacovigilance concept, because pharmacovigilance basically talks about adverse events of the drugs. And there is a belief, there was is the wrong word, there is still a belief that Ayurvedic medicines do not have side effects or they do not have adverse effects. And we simply forget one thing which is scientific, that if a drug is producing effect, it has to have side effects. So this is a very, very simple equation, but people are not ready to accept that. And in 2006, so it was really very difficult for people to digest this concept that Ayurvedic medicines can develop side effects. And when we did this workshop, it was not just like mimicking the modern medicine thing, But we had some experiences also when we were working in Nair Hospital that there were some counterfeit or spurious drugs, there were substandard drugs, and there are some misbeliefs also. Like suppose a drug is having a word name in Ayurveda, Arogya Vardhini. So people generally believe that it is going to increase their Arogya, and then they take it without any advice, without any medical, such advice for a very long duration. There is a drug called as Garbhapal Rasa. So Garbhapalaras, as the name suggests, it is during the 9 months of pregnancy it has to be taken because it is for the better growth or proper growth of the fetus. But we have come across cases where people, I mean, the ladies have taken the drug for habitual abortions for 2-3 years together. Now you can understand, like, the drug which has to be taken for 9 months, they are taking for 2-3 years together for habitual abortions. So this is not a right practice also. But because of that, Ayurvedic drugs get bad. I mean, they get. Uh, I mean, there is a lot of allegations and this thing like Ayurveda drugs are producing this kind of adverse effect. Actually, here there is a medication error that they shouldn't be taking this drug for so long, but they are taking. So there is definitely a need to create an awareness that Ayurvedic medicines are not safe, and if you don't take it with precautions in whatever way it is described to be taken. So there is need to, I mean, we thought that there is a need to develop this awareness, and with this thought we have created or we have conducted that workshop. And after that workshop, government of India also took a serious note of that workshop. Ministry, that time it was a Department of Ayush, so Department of Ayush launched a program on pharmacovigilance. That was the first program which was launched by the department, and they took nationwide workshops. They created a lot of awareness through different, with many workshops. And again, the result of that whole program, they set up a national pharmacovigilance center at Jamnagar. But the number of adverse events which were getting reported were very less, because people were still not, after doing the workshops also and after, I mean, attending the whole thing also, they were not ready to accept. Though they have attended, it was just for sake of attendance, but they were not ready to report, or they were like, if you ask them that, they will say like, no, we don't have any adverse effects in our hospital. But gradually the scene changed. People became aware that yes, we have to do something, like we have to at least document the things. We have to ask the patients with a little bit of more interest that whether you have suffered anything after taking this medicine. And as you might be knowing is a wrong thing, but you will agree with me that if people take allopathy medicines, they report the adverse events very meticulously, that I have experienced this thing, that thing, even from urine color has changed and so what and so not. But if they are taking Ayurvedic medicines, then they do not come up with such kind of observations. Rather, they would blame themselves that I might have done something wrong because the Ayurvedic medicine, hey, that cannot go wrong. So it took a lot of effort to inculcate this approach in people's mind. Of course, this is nothing to do with our Ayurveda biology thing, because pharmacovigilance basically talk about the effects and adverse effects of the drug, and Ayurveda biology is basically looking into Ayurvedic concepts and procedures or the drug effects from a biology perspective. So giving some biology perspective to that. But this is a very important topic, and we should work towards it. And you have asked me the skills which a person should. So I would first say, like, it is not a skill, but it is an approach, that there has to be open-mindedness. That there something can go wrong and we have to be vigilant. That kind of approach has to be developed first, and then it will be possible to document the adverse events or take the pharmacovigilance program ahead. Now the ministry has launched the program again, and All India Institute of Ayurveda is now heading the Pharmacovigilance National Pharmacovigilance Center, and it is almost a parallel program as for modern medicine. The All India Institute of Medical Sciences is heading the program for modern medicine. So All India Institute of Ayurveda is leading for Ayurveda sector, and now they are getting some adverse effects, and some theses have also been done. Some students have also worked on it, So now the things are changing, and definitely people will become aware of this.
Yeah, certainly that's a very important area. As you rightly said, like, people generally think that Ayurveda formulations or drugs do not have any side effect on one side. And sometimes I feel that there are other group of people, they always say that all Ayurveda formulations are, hepatotoxic or, uh, renal toxic. So that is another kind of a, what I can say,
So the
allegation.
thing here is like we have to maintain a balance, because as I say, like when there are going to be, means when the drug is going to produce effect, it is going to produce some side effects also. But we have to consider to what extent, how much, and like we have to take care of all these things and strike a balance between the two things.
Yeah.
And here the role of media is also equally important.
Of course, yeah, that's also very important. But in that context, I would like to have one more small question in this angle. See, generally we can see that, like, the same formulation, when it is coming from different manufacturers, you will see some sort of a difference in its, like, say, hedonicity or sometime the appearance. All those things you can see. So whether those sort of things are also coming under the purview of this pharmacovigilance.
These things also come under the purview of pharmacovigilance. But now the things are changing very fast, and you must have seen during the GCTM launch, the WHO Global Center for Traditional Medicine, which was recently inaugurated. The groundbreaking ceremony happened in April. And now, after that, when the summit was held in Ahmedabad, so many things were announced. So there will be a Ayush certification for products. Now these things will not happen, because I could show you the data, like how one formulation from different companies have different kind of metal levels, mineral levels, and other ingredients, because we have done a lot of studies that time during 2006 2007. But now I think hopefully the thing will change, because the Quality Control Bureau of India is also taking part into this. So things will definitely change, and these kind of, at least, issues will not come in future.
Yeah, that is very nice, and it's very important as well, because that kind of a standardization is certainly required, before, particularly when we talk about globalization of concepts of Ayurveda. So that's very important. So I have my next question, because you are what I can say, very you have done a lot of work in the area of clinical research. So the Ayurveda interventions basically are considered as personalized. So you will have a lot of fine tuning. Maybe a physician can do a lot of fine tuning in terms of what drugs they are prescribing for. So maybe, like, different individuals with the same disease may get different interventions, unlike the modern or allopathy treatment, I would like to say like that. So in this context, like, what are the challenges that clinical research can face, particularly when you are doing randomized clinical trials for Ayurveda formulations? Can you please elaborate on that? What is your experience?
Uh, I would like to answer these questions from different perspectives. So first thing is, I would like to state here that clinical research and clinical practice are two different things that we have to consider. Like in clinical practice, we talk about individualization and individualized medicines. That is fine. But when it comes to clinical research, it is really very difficult to individualize certain things and then study a particular intervention. So first thing we have to understand is basic difference, and then we have to start planning a clinical study. But at the same time, there are some good news or some good kind of things which are happening, is to give justice to this individualized approach. Now different trial designs are also coming up, like whole system design or black box design, where the Ayurvedic intervention is not dissected into components, or whatever is the whole Ayurveda treatment is given to patients and it is compared. I hope many of you must have read the paper by Dr. Ram Manohar on whole system research. So it is a very excellent example that how you can maintain the individuality, and that at the same time you can maintain the RCT principles also. So this is an example how you can perfectly maintain the balance. If you don't want to go for whole system, then also there are different kind of approaches like flexible dose design or escalation in the dose designing, escalation dose. So there are different approaches which have now emerged. But when you really plan the RCTs, this is the first challenge. Like if you really want to consider this individualization, then it becomes really difficult, because if you want to give individualized treatment, then your treatment groups increase, and then your randomization, then whole thing, I mean managing the whole study also becomes very difficult, because then the blinding, randomization, all these things become really very difficult as the groups increase. And when your groups increase, the internal validity also goes down. So it is really a very tricky thing. But again, I will come to the same point that clinical research and clinical practice are really two different things. In clinical practice, we are more interested to know like which medicine is which is the best medicine, or what is the best regimen for my patient. Whereas in clinical research, you want to explore like which how this drug works, and how much this drug works. So these are two different approaches. So we really need not to mix them and confuse with them. And with these new approaches like the whole system, or black box design, or like flexible dose design, we have done one study in which we have given different doses to overweight and obese individuals. In overweight individuals, for the same formulation, we have used a different dose. And at the end, like people get confused, then how you will do analysis. So you have to just do the analysis like for overweight individuals, this dose was necessary, so we have used this particular dose. And what is the effect? And for obese individuals, this much dose was required, so I have given that dose. So this is where your individualization is working, like what dose is required for that particular individual to treat his or her obesity. So this is how you can manage this particular aspect. But I would again say like it is very difficult. It is very difficult task, like we were talking about maintaining the balance for our earlier question. Here you have to maintain a balance between Ayurveda principles on one side, and on other side the clinical pharmacology principles. But I think like I always say like one question at a time. So you cannot answer many questions. Like whether this drug will work is your question, or whether this drug will work in this this Prakriti individual with this Sammanan, with this Tarata is your question. So one question at a time. Whether the drug works, and if it works, what is its efficacy? And then if it works, then you can find out in the next step, like in which Prakriti it works better, or in which kind of people it works better. So this is my approach. I may be right or wrong, but this is the approach which we take in my lab.
Yeah, thank you. That is like, certainly it is important to have some new methodologies to address this kind of challenges. So probably that is also something that we need to really consider under this, kind of course, Ayurveda biology kind of programs, and definitely.
Even in the Ayurveda biology program, in Ayurveda biology first project, which we did on the immunological and metabolic effects of Panchakarma. So in that, you might be knowing that before giving Vaman or Virechan, a certain amount of drug, certain amount of some liquids have to be taken, like sugarcane juice for Vaman procedure. I am telling you, sugarcane juice, or some Yashti Madhu Kadha, or some. There are some drugs which have to be taken. So you cannot fix the dose of these drugs that every individual will take this amount only. So we have used the black box approach, that whatever the amount the patient will drink, that is according to his stomach capacity. So we cannot standardize. You cannot spoil the spirit of Ayurveda by standardizing everything. That is something which we need to remember.
That is true, yeah. It's really a great, what I can say, information that we are receiving through this interaction, and we really would like to continue this for hours together. But due to the interest of time, we may have to stop this discussion at this point of time. And Dr. Megha, can we conclude this?
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Supriya. Very frank and honest, and I really enjoyed hearing about your journey of how you got into this. So actually, there is a very nice question on the chat, not specifically to metabolism, but about crafting this journey in Ayurveda biology. There is an Ayurveda practitioner who has joined us tonight. And I guess this exists in the mind of all clinicians. How can I stop my clinical practice and then take a break and do this course? Is it possible for us to do this online? So I will answer why this is not online, but I would like you to share your advice on what do you think practicing clinicians like this should do in the situation?
Yeah, actually, this is a very difficult question for me to answer because it is an individual choice, like whether you want to stop your practice for 2 years and get some knowledge and go back to your practice. But I would certainly say something that nowadays the only practice is not going to help you. There has to be some value addition to your practice. So people are, doing nowadays specialty practices. People have come up with even a small hospital, you will find like hospital and research center, because this is a new trend. Everybody wants to do something different. There has to be some value addition. So if you really feel like after doing this course, you are going to have some value addition to your clinical practice, then it is worth giving these 2 years. That is what I can say about this particular question. For me, it was very simple because I learned it on field. I was working and I learned and I developed the interest. So I didn't have to take a break. But even many researchers, and when the Vaidya Scientist program was launched, I remember that people used to come to TDO for 15 days, 10 days, leaving their whatever they are doing, the practice or their academics, and they learned there, and that is definitely helping them. I can see many Vaidya scientists are doing extremely very good. So if this is going to help you in your practice, then it is worth giving these 2 years.
Thank you. That's very nicely put. And I'd just like to add that the reason we don't do this online is we want people to come learn from us, have discussions with classmates, walk around on campus, look at the medicinal plants, talk about the genetics, talk about the botany, talk about the Ayurveda properties. And then we want you to come back to lab, take that leaf, crush it up, extract the DNA. And that's just not possible if it's not face to face. We also feel, you have a long lifetime of careers, right? I mean, people can have a career for 40, 50, 60 years. 1 year or 2 year will, in that, if you look at it from a big point of view, is not that much of a break, first. Second, we offer the opportunity for Vaidyas to go with a diploma. We don't encourage it, but you can finish up just the first year and go with a diploma. We think it's very important for you to have that research project. And in the research project, we encourage you to do clinical projects. So you can go back to being a practicing clinician, but now take this knowledge that you have learned in terms of diagnostics, in terms of the molecular biology, in terms of the fundamental biology that is being applied, and add the Ayurveda bit to it and refine clinical practice. So just thought we should address this question. And thank you so much, Dr. Supriya.
There is one more question, whether we have time for that or we will address that separately. The question is how to dissect and model the Tridosha concept experimentally. Is it possible to induce in experimental animal? Do you think like we have time for that? It's a...
We'll ask Dr. Supriya.
Can I know what is the question, exact question?
How to dissect and model the Tridosha concept experimentally. Can we have some animal?
Yeah, I remember when I was doing my master's, that time one of my senior was examining the prakriti of animals and trying to do certain like Vata prakriti, or Dr. Megha and Dr. Vishnu, you are the right persons, but I have heard even to this extent, like we can knock out certain genes because we have now some idea like which genes are, related to movement and the signaling pathways, and which genes are related to transformation, the kind of metabolic activity, and which are related to growth hormone synthesis. So we can have models where we can knock out, or we can, genetically modify these animals and develop them as experimentally Vata, Pitta and Kapha models and then study certain things on them. But this is, I have not seen like anybody who is succeeded in this, and now we have these experimental models available for Vata, Pitta, Kapha, or examining the prakriti of animals by their how they are doing their movements and how much they are eating is a futile experiment. That is what I think. Maybe this genetic engineering can give us some leads.
Absolutely agree. I think, and when we talk about Ayurveda biology, I think we are very clear we don't want to validate Ayurveda. So the idea for us to even have this model, experimental model for Vata, Pitta and Kapha, we should have a really good question we want to answer. Because only when we have that, then it makes sense for us to model it, right? I think it is backwards if we say first we will make the Tridosha and then we will ask questions. So that's the whole point of Ayurveda biology. We want to take the framework, we want to understand it. And I think rather than model the Tridosha concept, what we are saying is that if you imagine, for example, nervous system function, right? That's a Vata dominant event, right? If you now apply that framework of thinking, then your ability to design experiments, your ability to extract information from whatever phenotypes you see is very different. Whereas if you were to just say, I'm going to look at it in terms of ion channel function, or I'm going to look at just its metabolism. So I think that question about putting the Tridosha on the experimental model is probably not a nice way to do Ayurveda biology.
True.
I think, Megha, there are no other questions, Megha. Please,
Okay.
we can conclude. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Supriya. It was brilliant having you here, and we look forward to having you on our campus and interacting with our students and
Sure.
taking them through like a 2-day workshop. I think clinicians like you are far in between, and it's really very inspiring to hear your journey and the kind of things that you're doing. So we look forward to continued interaction with you, and maybe we'll send a student to your lab to do their dissertation.
That was the last thing which I actually wanted to say. Like anybody who finishes this MSc Ayurveda biology wants to join my lab are welcome to join. Or even during your projects, if you are permitted to work in other labs, you are welcome to work in my labs.
Certainly.
We definitely encourage that. We encourage our students to go places. So we'll hopefully talk more. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vishnu. Good night, everybody.
Good night.